So 8th grade, Unit 2, Lesson 2, Video B, Graphing Linear Functions. And the title is a little deceiving because this lesson, we talked about graphing linear functions, but in this video, we're actually not going to do any graphing. We're going to worry about writing linear functions given real-world situations. So this is where the real-world application finally comes in. And I want you to notice, though, that if we decided to graph them, we could get a visual perspective on these relationships that we're going to look at. But you guys have already done enough graphing, and we're going to do more later. So today, on this video, let's just focus on writing linear equations given real-world situations. Okay, here's the first problem that we're going to look at. Julia saves $40 a month and received $20 in birthday money. Write an equation relating Julia's total amount of money, Y, for X number of months Julia saves. Notice that it tells us what each variable needs to represent. Also, remember that linear equations have a Y and they have an X. So, let's take a look at this. X represents the number of months. The way we know that is because the problem told us, and it makes sense in the equation. Let's see. She makes $40 per month, so 40x represents the amount earned per month. That makes sense because let's say she saved for 3 months. If we put the number 3 in the place of x, that would be 40 times 3. And that makes perfect mathematical sense if we're trying to figure out how much money she saved. But there's one more factor we haven't considered. She received a one-time payment of $20. So plus 20 represents this value. So we've got two different components. We've got a monthly saving and we've got a one-time input of $20. So this is how we might put it all together. So far we have 40x plus 20. 40x represents the amount saved in x number of months, whatever x happens to be, and the plus 20 represents that one-time payment. Y represents the total amount of money. And when we put them together, we get the equation y equals 40x plus 20. So we can put in a number for x, representing the number of months Julia saved, and it would automatically, if we did the math, tell us y, which would be the total amount of money. There's one more question that I want us to consider when it comes to problems like this, and that is the equation we came up with linear? To do this, I want you to remember that a linear equation follows the format of y equals mx plus b. So the question is, does y equals 40x plus 20, is that a linear equation? Well, let's compare them. So the first one we have is the equation we derived, y equals 40x plus 20. And then if we compare that against the format, you notice there's a lot of similarities here. For example, in this case, it looks like m is equal to 40, and b is equal to 20. So 20 becomes is the b in this case, and 40 is the m in this case. So it does indeed fit the format of a linear equation. It's a y equals mx plus b type of equation, where b is 20 and m is 40. Therefore, it must be a linear equation. Let's do one more example. This example deals with measurements. Tommy measured the length of his fence in yards, but wants to express the measurement in feet. Write an equation relating yards x to feet y. Tell whether the equation is linear or nonlinear. Once again, it helps us out by telling us what we should use in terms of yards and what variable we should use to express feet. Y for feet, x for yards. And there are 3 feet in a yard, and x represents the number of yards. So that's going to get us to multiply the number of yards by 3 to get the total amount of feet, 3x, is how we would express this, because it represents a conversion from yards to feet. So let's recap. 3x, or 3 times whatever x is, gets us the total number of feet So if we measured, or if he measured his fence to be 12 yards and we put 12 in the place of x, that would be 3 times 12, or 36 feet. It told us already that y represents the total amount of feet. So let's put this all together into an equation. Y equals 3x. If we put it all together, that's what it looks like, where y represents the total feet and x represents the amount of yards in the problem. And so one quick strategy for you, when you're going through problems like this and you're trying to write an equation, pay special attention to what it says for y, and pay special attention what the problem says x should be. And then use your own logic to put them together. You already know there are 3 feet in a yard. And so what you can do is you can do some trial and error. You can go, okay, y equals 3x. Plug in some numbers and see if it makes sense. At first, problems like this, I remember when I was learning this in junior high, and I remember that the first time I did it, it seemed kind of hard. But after a few, I really got the hang of it, and I think that's going to happen for you guys. But we still have one more question to look at. And that question is this particular equation we came up with linear? Does it fit the y equals mx plus b format? Again, let's compare. So we have y equals 3x, and we're comparing that against y equals mx plus b. Now, right away, we notice that we're missing a b here. There's no b in this area. So what does that mean? Does that mean that it's not linear? Or does it mean that b might be a certain number that we just can't see? As it turns out in problems like this, in this case, m is 3 and b is 0. Y equals 3x is exactly the same thing as y equals 3x plus 0. So in fact, even though you don't see the b value, it's still linear because the b value is 0. It still fits the y equals mx plus b format. Okay, so when you practice this skill in just a second, what I want you to do is I want you to read the problem very carefully. I want you to pay special attention to what x and to what y should be. And then I want you to try and put them together. Sometimes there will be a b value, like in the first problem when we had that one-time savings of $20. And sometimes there won't be a b value, like if you're trying to go just from yards to feet. So give it your best try. And this is one of those particular worksheets that some of you are going to get right away, and some of you are going to need extra practice. There's no problem with that. Give it your best shot. Thanks.